garbage on the ground, uncollected items, messy environments, children who do not want to share their belongings, anger. Sound familiar? Yes, I think it sounds very familiar. This is Lia Yönetigül, specialist psychologist, family counselor, and couple therapist. Preschool is the primary period that children are self-centered. They are disorganized, their planning skills have not reached the desired level, and they need learning environments to be created for expected behaviors. Since their skills such as problem solving, establishing cause and effect relationships, expressing their feelings and thoughts appropriately are not yet at the desired level, they cannot predict the consequences of their behavior. In early childhood stages, we, as the educators, have to provide appropriate, safe, positive and predictable environments for the children to achieve these skills. Here, I'd like to talk about 21st century life skills, in general, social and emotional skills. Social and emotional learning is the process through which children and adults acquire the knowledge, attitudes and skills to recognize and manage their emotions, set and achieve positive goals, demonstrate caring and concern for others, establish and maintain positive relationships, make responsible decisions, and handle interpersonal situations effectively. These critical social and emotional competencies involve skills that enable children to calm themselves when angry, initiate friendships and resolve conflicts respectfully, make ethical and safe choices, and contribute constructively to their community. The Collaborative for Academic, Social and Emotional Learning has identified 5 groups of interrelated core social and emotional competencies that social emotional learning programs should address. The first one is self-awareness. Self-awareness is accurately assessing one's feelings, interests, values, and strengths, maintaining a well-grounded sense of self-confidence. The second, self-management, is regulating one's emotions to handle stress, controlling impulses, and persevering in addressing challenges. The other, social awareness, is being able to take the perspective of and empathize with others, recognizing and appreciating individuals and group similarities and differences. The fourth one, relationship skills, is establishing and maintaining healthy and rewarding relationships based on cooperation. The last one, responsible decision making, is making decisions based on consideration of ethical standards, safety concerns, appropriate social norms, respect for others, and likely consequences of various actions. Students who appraise themselves and their abilities realistically, regulate their feelings and behaviors appropriately, interpret social cues accurately, resolve interpersonal conflicts effectively, and make good decisions about daily challenges are headed on a pathway towards success in school and later life. When we consider improving these skills in early childhood, we come across with different approaches like second steps, paths, and etc. Among all of these approaches, there is one that is called PBS. PBS is not a program. It's a system and a framework which can be adapted according to different needs of children and all school stakeholders. This is the only system that covers the whole school and it does not have a standard curriculum. That's why we started implementing PBS. It was in 2010 when we first started implementing PBS in Turkey. While we started implementation in schools, we had to adapt PBS accordingly to our culture and needs. Extensive research in school, community, and clinical settings has led several authors to offer recommendations on what procedures should be followed for effective skill training. For example, there is a broad agreement that programs are likely to be effective if they use a sequenced, step-by-step training approach, use active forms of learning, focus sufficient time on skill development, and have explicit learning goals. Here again, we should talk about SAFE. Sequenced, active, focused, explicit. In order to design a curriculum or a program, we have to base our program on these 4 essential features. 1. Sequenced. You should ask, does the program use a connected and coordinated set of activities to achieve their objectives relatively to skill development? The second, active. You should ask, does the program use active forms of learning to help youth learn new skills? Third, focused. You should ask, does the program have at least one component devoted to developing personal or social skills? And the last, explicit. Does the program target specific social and emotional learning skills rather than targeting skills or positive development in general terms? Here, PBS is the system that is based on these 4 essential features. And this is exactly the reason we started implementing PBS in our school. We created our own PBS system upon our school-wide needs. We designed our PBS system to be sequenced, active, focused, and explicit. What are the effective forms of learning in early childhood? Learning should be fun and enjoyable. This is one of our main strengths, creating positive and enjoyable learning environment. We mainly use different forms of art.
Especially in the preschool and kindergarten period, while creating learning environments, it's of great importance that arts, especially arts and crafts, music, drama and dance, be constructed carefully, placed in the flow of the curriculum. It's also important to use arts effectively in social-emotional learning, where PBS is the main tool in this learning process at this age group. Besides the visuals used in the implementation and reinforcement of the expected behaviors, student participation in arts and crafts, music, drama, dance and movement practices are remarkably effective in the implementation of PBS. Since dance and movement with music is learning itself, these essential features improve children's physical, intellectual, emotional, and creative development. These types of practices, developed in accordance with the expected development of students according to the age groups, ensure both their active participation and internalization of behavior. Especially in the preschool and kindergarten period, the effect of arts such music, drama, dance and movement in education becomes even more important. Here, I would like to share with you some samples of social skills and expected behavior practices through music and movement. The first one is about greetings.
Günaydın, günaydın, yine çok güzel bir gün. Günaydın, günaydın, ne mutlu bir gün. Günaydın, günaydın, yine çok güzel bir gün. Günaydın, günaydın, ne mutlu bir gün.
I composed a good morning song to cheer up the children and the teachers in the mornings. The lyrics about a beautiful morning and wishful feelings of coming to school, relations with peers and teachers, pets of the schools, mainly creating connectedness. Next one is about the using of steps. Our school is four-story building. In our daily school life, we use the stairs often. In order to prevent risks, we don't use bars and fences or do's or don'ts. We rather prefer to mitigate these risks by making them learn the expected behavior by music and movement, so that they can internalize and transfer it into their daily lives in school and out of the school. As Leah mentioned earlier, one of the issues was leaving the class messy and untidy. We had a demonstration of tidying up the class. Here's another compose about tidying up the classroom and their rooms at home. This song is a reminder.
Topla, oyuncakları topla, sınıfını topla, odanı topla, ortada kalmasın topla. Oyuncakları topla, sınıfını topla, odanı topla, ortada kalmasın.
The only change that doesn't change, the change itself. Well, the life is changing day by day. With this pandemic, our lives are changed. Our daily lives, our way of living, our habits, our relations with our families and friends. Also, the way of school life. As you know, in the kindergartens, children touches, hugs, and kisses a lot. In this new type of normal life, we had to make some interventions in the school life as well. Here's another song which is called Hugging Without Touching.
Sevince her şey mümkün, dokunmadan sarılsam ben sana. Gözüme bakman yeter, uzakta olsak yeter bu bana. Sevince her şey mümkün, dokunmadan sarılsam ben sana. Gözüme bakman yeter, uzakta olsak yeter bu bana. Arkadaşım sağ kolunu kaldır, şimdi sol kolunu kaldır, kendine sarıl, kucakla. İnan biz uzak olsak bile, sevgimiz hep içimizde, dokunmadan sarılarak. Arkadaşım sağ kolunu kaldır, şimdi sol kolunu kaldır, kendine sarıl, kucakla. İnan biz uzak olsak bile, sevgimiz hep içimizde, dokunmadan sarılarak.
In general, art education or artwork in schools, especially for children, is approached more as a concept from the point of learning how to paint, how to dance or play an instrument. However, it is very important to understand very well that art branches are important tools for the transfer of feelings and thoughts, for communication and learning, and that the approach to art should be reviewed in this direction and fed into education. The key point here is that art is included in the curriculum or program in a well-structured and focused way. While stimulating a situation and reinforcing a behavior in preschool education, you can observe that learning and acquisitions will be much stronger if the fun and enjoyable features of arts that stimulate emotions are used effectively. All these songs are composed according to the needs of our schools individually. As you know, it's a PBS way of implementing. Now I will hand my talk to Leah. She will pinpoint some important issues on implementing PBS school-wide. How we made it sequenced, focused, and explicit.
As we know, PBS is not a program, it's a framework, a system with interventions and strategies that are planned ahead of time. Now, I would like to share with you how we set up our system from the very beginning. After we set up our teams, which I'm going to show you later, we started working on our needs. Students' needs, teacher needs, administration staff needs, even the school driver needs. So we had kind of SWOT analysis, like what works, what does not work, our strengths and weaknesses, our requirements, our pros and cons, and how we can change our difficulties to strengths. In order to do this, we needed to have different sessions for brainstorming. After that, we started collecting data as a school. Before everything, this is a must. Data collection was very important. We gathered data from teachers, from parents, from students, from administration staff. We worked on every detail. After we concluded all data, all teams got together and started planning the whole school year. We had to do a timeline. We worked on this timeline and we made an action plan which showed us the whole year work. When we have had our action plan, we worked on interventions and strategies. This is a living organism, so it needs revision all the time. After that, we started implementation. I will share in a minute how we implemented these strategies and interventions. Implementation is a long-term process. After implementation, next comes the evaluation process, where we use many different scales. We start evaluating new data based on our practices and revise the whole process. Generally, implementing PBS in a school environment takes minimum 3 years. First year is just a study and a practice year. Second year, we implement and we internalize PBS as a school community. And the third year, PBS becomes the lifestyle. Since the process is ongoing, on this cycle needs to be done properly. Here, you can see how we worked with parents, teachers, and students during the assessment period. As I mentioned earlier, we gathered information on all our school needs. Next step was setting the PBS teams. We needed a PBS coordinator. Every school have a PBS coordinator, preferably a school counselor, but it doesn't have to be. Any teacher will do. We cannot force our teachers to get the responsibility to be the coordinator. It should be done willingly. Whoever is willing, he or she can be school PBS coordinator. One should know that school counselor and school coordinator should work tête-à-tête all the time. Of course, we need a representative from the school administration. This is the core team of the school. School administration, school coordinator, and school counselor. Underneath these, as an organizational structure, we need to have parents team, student team, and teacher team. When we set up the teacher team, we pay attention to have representatives from each age group in our kindergarten who are volunteers. As for the student team, we prefer students who are the leaders in their classes since this is a kindergarten. And the same goes with the parents who are volunteers. As you can see here, when we set up our teams, as Tanju mentioned before, learning should be enjoyable and fun. Even with the adults, we had different fun activities so that they can feel the connectedness to the school. Values are the most important building blocks of a society. Likewise, determining school values in order to create a positive and reliable school environment is the core of the PBS framework. It's not easy choosing values for a school. As we practiced in public and private schools earlier, it always is better and fun having enjoyable activities. Instead of voting for some values, it's always better to have something concrete in their hands. We have a value game which played by each team. Each team comes up with 3 values at the end, so that it means we have 9 values altogether. Then, these 3 groups come together and play the value game again in order to choose the final 3 school values. Last session is a brainstorming one, and it's much fun. As you know, our school is a kindergarten and preschool. We use different kinds of techniques like role plays, Muppet, songs, etc. After each group work on values, we come up with 3 school values. They are respect, responsibility, and tolerance. These values now are ready to set up our expected behavior in our kindergarten and preschool. For our expected behavior again, first of all, we needed to have a mascot. As we all know, connectedness is the most important thing for students to make them feel belong to school. In base of that, we choose our school mascot with the students and all teams in order to provide connectedness in the school. With the joint decision of all teams, the mascot of EDC schools was determined as the caterpillar. Now, caterpillar symbolizes our school. This is a metamorphosis. This is a change of becoming individual. As the next step, we again determined our expected behavior with all school teams. By creating learning environments for our students, using a positive and constructive language, we determined the behaviors we expect them to do, not the behaviors they should not do. Even we asked our children showing the mascot itself. To elicit answers, we asked how this mascot can behave in common areas. Such role plays were very useful. One of our colleagues had made this love picture for each school area. We use all these pictures everywhere in the school as a reminder. The more the children are exposed, the more they internalize expected behavior. Now, let's have a look to some demos with our students in the process of learning and internalizing our expected behaviors. Here, you can see some photos from the garden, from our toilets, from the stairs, from the lunch area, and different parts of the school. Here are the demos which we have done to make the students learn the expected behaviors. Then we create a reward and consequence system for our students in order to reinforce their positive and expected behaviors, to make them transferring these positive behaviors to life and to gain continuity of these positive behaviors. Children determine the reward system. Having whole class and personal pompon rewarding is the main system. Also, there are various rewards such as having lunch with administration staff. And the consequence system in our school is based on to make students to be able to replace their negative behaviors with expected behaviors. After all these stages were completed, PBS was put in place. As Carl Rogers states, I cannot teach anything to anyone. I can only provide the learning environment.